All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back here to MCubed. And of course, I'm Schmook, and I'm here with my good buddy Bradley over here. And there's been a lot of news pretty recently regarding a huge subject, which is the DC cinematic universe. Let's get right into it. All right, Brad. Of course, we're pretty up to date on a lot of the big news that comes out thanks to Twitter. You know, we always have those notifications going. Sadly,
Absolutely.
yesterday we lost Henry Cavill as Superman. And of course, within the past month, we found out that James Gunn is now like the Kevin Feige role over at DC. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, oh man. Okay, so there's a lot of places to start. First off, glad to be back on the show. I missed talking with you, but this is I don't know. This is kind of like a topic that we've touched upon several times in the past. So, I feel like it's a good continuity and a place for us to pick up. And I'd also like to say, you and I, as legitimate fans since the beginning, since seeing Man of Steel in theaters, hell, I would argue, seeing The Dark Knight Rises in, the midnight premiere, I watched the whole marathon, of the entire trilogy in a row, in middle school. All that is to say, I've been into this in the beginning. I still remember seeing the announcement of what was going to be Batman v Superman, and little did I know, I still have that core memory, that was going to be and I mean, arguably, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It's my favorite film, I think, definitively. It's what I default to. But what I'm trying to say is, like, we followed this movement, and these characters and this pseudo universe, for a long time. And following all of this stuff on Twitter, especially surrounding the Snyder Cut, leaks, the news, all of that. We've been in there from the beginning, and I think this is like, the way it hit me is like just kind of the abruptness of the ending of like all of that I feared was coming down the pipeline when it was just randomly announced that Gunn and that other guy are
Peter Safran, I believe.
right. Yeah, exactly. I know his name, but the point of that was to be like,
Right.
who is this guy? I've heard the name, I think, but I don't know what he has anything to do with DC or movies or anything.
Sure.
But again, it was kind of like the final
The true nail in the coffin.
right. And it was kind of like the ending of a war where, at one moment, just that was the last shot was like fired, and you're just like, oh shit, like,
Oh,
okay.
the thing is, we won the battle when Snyder Cut came out, I felt, but
Yes.
we ultimately lost the war because now the Snyderverse is done. Even though it actually has a huge fan base, people can say it's a lot of bots on Twitter. I truly just don't believe it. I
Not
think
true.
people are just super passionate about this universe, these characters, Zach himself, like, and what his vision was for this universe,
Yes.
which wasn't meant
Yes.
to be an MCU, or like it was its own thing with a little spin-off films here and there, but like an overall saga, like a Lord of the Rings trilogy or original
Right.
Star Wars saga, and that's what
Right.
Zach's intentions were. It was never meant
Yes.
to be necessarily the rival to the MCU. It's just its own thing. Now, what Gunn's doing is trying to do DC in that format. So I guess we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I think that'll be the second, the sort of second part of the episode where
Right.
we go into that. So, but going from that idea, I guess we can go the tweets. And again, what I ultimately, think about all of it, to answer your question, is obviously it's terrible. And like we were saying in our text, when I just texted you, bro, this, next to the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, and in particular The Last Jedi.
Happy 5-year anniversary, by the way.
5-year anniversary of like one of the darkest days of my life. After one of the previous darkest days of my life, that was my
Just
birthday
one day
of
off.
Justice League. Because
Literally the
I
worst thing
saw Justice League on my birthday, bro. That's the
Ooh,
tragedy.
wow. Yeah. That hits hard, baby. But the thing is,
So that in a row.
what's crazy is that the true nail in the coffin of the Snyderverse happens one day prior to the anniversary of Last Jedi, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Honestly, yes, that is actually crazy. I didn't really think about
Is
that.
December just a dark time for us? Maybe.
Maybe
Or
because
just winter time in general, because I'll count your birthday in there, which is in November when Justice League came out.
yeah. I think it starts there, and at least for that year, as a final point on this, that year ended on a good note with 2049 in
Yeah,
October, and then November, December, it was just like a plane
it
crash.
plummets.
Yeah, it
It's literally
plummets.
yeah.
Terrible. It was. I mean,
It's like the dawn of the Great Depression, like
yeah. Oh, yeah.
stock
Yeah.
market
Exactly.
crashed. But
Totally. But in any case, next to, I would say, the sequel trilogy's destruction of the fan base of an IP, this is arguably the greatest cinematic blunder in history.
yes,
You can quote me on that. I will stand by this. God, if God willing, if any one of our projects becomes into fruition, I will stand by this still.
I
I will
want
tell
this
it.
in an interview. I want this in a
I will
press
tell it.
junket.
Yes, on TV, I would say this to their faces. Kennedy and Ryan Johnson, it's the single worst in history. This is a close second. What we were talking about, like I mentioned, I just threw out a number in terms of the profit that they're losing is upwards of $5 billion.
Yeah,
I
at
think.
least I would think.
I think because especially if you have Aquaman 2
Shazam
and
too.
and the Flash
True.
both having Snyderverse characters return, it's legitimately you're losing because that type of shit, regardless of what the media will say, that type of shit, like I think did bring like the fans together because
Like, who's gonna see these movies?
but it's all the stuff about the box office and all of that. That was a psyop from the beginning.
Always.
Everything about it started with BVS.
Like
All of
BBS
that
is
was
like a blunder, or
it's a terrible movie.
terrible
It's a
movie.
flop. It's all a psyop. It literally is. They
And,
they psyoped that movie.
besides Aquaman, it's the DCEU's second highest grossing film. So is it really
Right. Not that, and I'm even saying the box office stuff because that matters to them
to
and
them?
to the
Like, we
and
don't
to the
care.
and to the business people. That determines the decisions, which is why I mention it. It doesn't, I don't give a single shit about the
No.
box office. It means nothing. It means nothing. Like, but in any case, they're losing billions that could have gone into developing the IP and providing a larger production budget, or rather being the decision maker for why the studio gives the future Gunn projects more funding. And I don't know, because I fear that those movies will become fucking assembly line like what the
Right.
MCU is.
Sure. I
And
mean,
they
again,
will look bad. And they will look bad and be shot poorly and be
sure.
poorly written.
Well, and what I've talked to you about on multiple occasions, it's just like, well, I mean, not multiple occasions, just since yesterday, but multiple texts, I will say that
Yes.
what makes zero sense to me is just completely putting the nail in Henry Cavill's Superman when, again, you still have these 3 movies coming out next year, and it only gives you, and James is saying how he's going to reveal a slate of some sort at the beginning of the new year. And I'm like, dog, one, that's terrible press for your upcoming movies under Warner Brothers. And then next in line is just like, you're rushing to start your MCU when you literally got hired less than a month ago. And then you're like, oh, I already have a full slate for like a phase 1 probably, right? So it's like, how about you at least, of course, what we want is for James just be like, all right, Zach, come back, finish your 2 movies and just be done.
And release the Ayer cut.
And release the Ayer cut, potentially ending it where it can lead into a DCU with a reboot and completely ending these characters when they have their own story finished. And that gives you at least 5 years. And same with the Matt Reeves stuff. Who knows if it's going to continue with Batman?
Bro, those movies can be financed and be shooting at the same time.
Easily. because
Easily.
they're not in the same universe, and who cares?
And I would argue the Reeves films both benefit from and just objectively had a smaller budget.
Right.
Like,
but again, so you have like the potential of 5+ years to completely plan out what you want to do with these characters. And I'd be more than happy with you, James, if you actually take your time to actually fully like visualize what you want to do. Where I'm like, in a month, if you sit in a room with Peter Safran for like maybe a few meetings, and you have meetings like, one of the good news was that he had a meeting with Ben Affleck that he might come in to direct one of these movies. We'll see about that.
I think a lot of that, bro, he's trying to damage control.
At damage control. And he's like, I look, okay, we can compare like what we saw yesterday with the James Gunn tweet as opposed to the Henry Cavill tweet, where you see with the James Gunn tweet, he's like, hey, we're looking to move past Henry Cavill, but he's a great guy. I look forward to working him at some point in the future. Where he seems pretty optimistic about the meeting. Henry's side, I'm like, man, it's just over. In my eyes, that's how I read how Henry said things compared to James.
It's like, it's pretty blatant. Like that's him speaking like pretty blatantly.
I think it's solely James Gunn might have one of the biggest egos in the industry, where he just wants to completely take over and run this ship. And he's like, oh, fuck you, Henry. Yeah, we'll try to work together in the future. And it's like, come on, dog. The only thing that I can see James doing that would make me truly happy and eventually look forward to what he does with the DC universe is you bring all these actors back for one last hurrah to be a Justice League. And
it's Crisis. It has to be Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Right. I mean, and you could do that, or you can just do a completely spin-off type movie where it's like a one shot where you just bring these actors
what
back.
you mean Snyder's JL.
Yeah, Snyder's JL. I'm saying I'm saying maybe I said that a little poorly, but
no, it's my fault. Keep going.
But anyway, so you bring back Ben, Henry, Gal, Jason, all of them. Probably not Ezra. We'll see. We'll see. But again, you do this as a last hurrah, at least to the fans, to get a little more time with Henry, a little more time with Ben. That isn't the Flash, or a quick little after credit scene at the end of Black Adam to see Ben and Henry, right? Where you do a Kingdom Come movie, which I think could be a nice little just one-off. Truly go into it.
Oh, okay. I like that in terms of like it could be the final, instead of Snyder doing Darkseid War and basically Final Crisis.
Right, and that's how you can still have.
You're saying he do Kingdom Come adapted with the Snyderverse actors,
and with the team, like with Zach and Terry moving.
Yes.
And that's gonna just be like a nice, like James Gunn being like, I'm not trying to spit in your face, but I want to just start fresh, do my own thing, which I can respect.
That I have no issue with. That's not a illogical thing.
My thing is just like he definitely has to have some like beef in some capacity with Cavill or like Zach or like some of these people, just to be like,
the whole like there obviously is like this weird animosity towards Zach and
in general
the whole and it's really strange, and frankly, you know, it's the sort of midwit people that make the most mid to bad quality films, that are the ones that say this stuff. So I mean, it is what it is. The funny thing is, Gunn, you know, one of Gunn's scripts got adapted by Zach anyway for Dawn of the Dead. So it's like, and you still, you know,
this guy probably like got your name out there more than anything.
Truly. And again, bro, you know the type of stuff that I like watch and the way that I like approach like cinema. It's just not the quality of the writing and the cinematography and everything, the mise-en-scène of the film. They're not even on the same, like, they're not even in the same league. Zach is so far ahead of anything James Gunn could hope to create that it's not even funny. It's not even funny. And I think that's the shame, though, is that we were saying his pride is what I think is driving all of these decisions, to, again, not do what is a smart business decision, based on, as much as they lie about it and suppress it, the Snyder cuts very wide reach to audiences, and what the fans want, and the box office potential, as we talked about just a few minutes ago.
Of course. I mean,
To throw that out in pursuit of some, again, completely self-centered, like, I know everything, I can make, like, bro, again, it's just the hubris. It's the hubris to me of, like, not understanding the quality difference between your films and Zach and Nolan and even Ayer.
and again, I like the Guardians movies. Like, they're fun, and they're
I don't disagree with that.
But it's like comparing that to like what Zach has done. It's just a different ballpark. It's not even the same sport,
Bro,
and it's fine.
no.
There's nothing wrong.
No, it's like it's the dance battle versus like Christ imagery.
Sure, exactly.
It's like, just look at that and you can't argue that. It's like, don't tell me these are the same.
They're not the same, but they don't have to be the same. But
right, correct. But I fear, I'm anticipating what you're going to say, and forgive me for interrupting, but I fear that he again is going to bring down the cinematic quality of the DC films, which has remained consistent over Marvel
sure,
the whole time.
No, I agree.
I mean, you can just compare, like, because I think the best that the Marvel films, and I mean Marvel the whole time, like starting with like Raimi and X-Men. Yeah. I think the best you're getting on like cinematography type of stuff is Logan and the Raimi films.
Yeah.
And the best you're getting on DC from the beginning is Richard Donner.
Yeah.
You're getting Tim Burton. You're getting Tim Burton.
Yes. And that's a different quality though when you compare it to like just getting some guys just to make this popcorn stuff. Where at least
but I'm talking like, look at the lighting and everything consistently. It's just they've always been shot better and have just a higher cinematic and artistic nature.
It actually has the director's vision in there, and that's what I was going to say.
Not that the Raimi films aren't that.
No, that's not what I'm arguing. It's just like
totally. And I'm saying that I agree with you.
I'm saying what the potential could be.
Yes,
like we're getting more of like a copy and paste with Marvel, where what I just don't want ultimately is I don't want the money and the business to be the one leading this, which it has been for a while now. But like when you get someone like a David Ayer or a Zack Snyder, who are really good filmmakers, to me, elite filmmakers, but not to everyone, but they're good. But it's like, as a human being, do you want the person making this art story and like everything to be fulfilled instead of it just getting like, it's like their baby and it just gets ripped away from them?
Yeah.
And they put so much like time and heart and effort into it to just have it be ripped away. And it's a problem. And but I'm hoping James Gunn at least can get some brilliant filmmakers involved. I just know he's already like, yo, I'm writing the next Superman movie. I'm like, I just don't want him to big dick this universe, which he probably will do because he has a huge ego. Like, enormous.
It's going to be so. The fact that someone like that is writing Superman makes me really upset.
And the thing is, I like what he's saying though about it, sure, but it's like,
they're empty words. The quality is not there.
Everything's been empty words. This dude's one of the biggest liars on the internet. Like, again, like he's like, I think it was like a few days prior, where like, I think Den of Nerds is the YouTube channel. He tweets out like he has some friends who's inside. Like he's like, I hate, like he's saying how James Gunn hates Henry Cavill and whatnot, which may not be true.
Yes.
Who knows? But James Gunn comes after him, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not true.
Yes. Even being directly tweeted at by Gunn, he still kept saying, bro, like everyone that I know keeps saying that you like hate these dudes. I'm just saying what people told me.
Right. Exactly.
And then Gunn's like, fuck you. You live in a basement.
Yeah, you live in your
And I'm like,
basement.
what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm like, dude, that's just a ridiculous. It's a smoke screen, bro.
And I also think what a tasteless insult from like some dude that gets paid to make like mid garbage.
Yeah, and probably most of your fan base actually does live in their mother's basement. Just
right. And or it's just like, but it's just like
Just low blow.
such an yeah. It's like insulting like just a normal person, and you're like a rich celebrity. It's like, bro.
He's treating this guy who's actually a pretty big personality on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know who the guy is.
No, I mean I watch him actually. I think he has good opinions on a lot of stuff. And
Okay.
but it's just like you're gonna talk to this guy like way down, like you're like a freaking like a human being looking down at an ant, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, dog. I know you made the Guardians movies and they're good. And now you're running DC and you think you're the biggest big shot on the planet. But like, come on, dog. I just don't get it. It's not,
I know. And I think that would be also talking about ripping away people's stuff. I think a perfect segue into talking about the other two filmmakers involved that also had things to say, which is The Rock and Patty Jenkins.
Right. This all comes together. It truly shows how the downfall of DC was happening.
Yeah. And
or
how
the DCEU, I should say.
Yes. What could be called the larger Snyderverse. And I mean, let's start by saying what we were talking about prior to shooting the episode is that obviously, to me at least, it seemed that The Rock was attempting to do some kind of pseudo continuation of the Snyderverse with his production company, much like Zach with Cruel and Unusual and the Stone Quarry, which are his two like companies. Like that's and what Nolan was doing with Syncopy, which is his production company with his wife. Those were like, while Warner Brothers is like the owns the IP, like those are the companies like overseeing the productions. So that's what The Rock was doing with his own production company, which I believe is with his wife as well. And so that I believe, and I think you agreed with me, he was going to continue the Snyderverse kind of in his own image. And then also honoring what I think was a legitimate intent to honor the fans.
I agree.
He, I think, is aware of the massive part of the fan base that just gets like a middle finger all day.
Constantly.
Yes. And he's like, I think including Henry was
it's a beautiful thing, but now it's
but listen, it was the first like bone he was going to throw us. Or us, meaning the Snyder fans.
Agreed. Completely agreed.
I think that I like, honestly.
Well, he fought so hard just to get Henry.
Bro, and Momoa fought so hard to put Ben in Aquaman. What is he doing in that movie?
And people are saying that after a like press screening or test screening, like how early, they're saying Ben's not even in the thing. In the most recent cut. So it's like, what's going on here? Like, what's up with all this hyping up? It's probably The Rock talking to all these guys, like, and be like, all right, listen.
Yeah, let's think about Wanda.
That's what they did to Zach, but like, we can still honor what he was trying to do, but in a different light.
Or like, I think taking the remnants of the story, and I think the tone is something I think The Rock liked, but bringing his own personal flair too. He liked it being more serious. He wouldn't want to be in like a literal like comedy like the Marvel films are. But I think you watched the full statement. What was he saying? Because I know he did like a video, and Patty did like a text. But I know that he was saying that like the studio basically was like adamant about keeping Henry out of all of this stuff, and he was like fighting.
Well, and then I don't know the exact like words or whatever. But I also know, like, I just know for a fact with Patty, I know she posted, or people were talking about how like what was leaked about what her script was for Wonder Woman 3, and like how she wants to bring back Chris Pine as Steve Trevor and have it involve the Lazarus Pit and stuff like that. And she just comes out and be like, no, it's just ultimately it's just I'm just out. Like that's basically just the paraphrase what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's like obviously she gets booted because it's clear as day that Jeff Johns like literally like trampled her in Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh yeah,
Patty Jenkins is a competent filmmaker.
Yes.
So it just is what it is. I mean,
I think who knows what that who knows what that movie was actually going to be.
Yeah, of course. And
because I think that she obviously understood the continuity of where Wonder Woman 1 took place.
right. And Zach was
That
involved heavily, so she understood
he's in the movie.
yeah, exactly. Like Zach got his people to do these movies, like the people he
Yes.
wanted. Zach was literally the I don't want to keep saying the Kevin Feige, but he was for what he was doing because it was his baby, his universe with these characters.
And he was saying in that video that we both watched, he pitched this in 2013,
Great
2014.
Video. Yes. And like just how
in his own words, he had it all written out. And then when they did the written storyboards, which I saw with my own eyes,
right,
was from 2015. So it was clearly after that got approved, he like started mapping out what was going to happen. And then we know that they altered a lot of the ending stuff of what happened in that timeline, where it was like, you know, the potential involvement of Bruce and Lois and stuff like that. Obviously, because in Snyder Cut, he doesn't have that at all.
Yeah, but so, I mean, of course, it's his universe, and like he can obviously want things to change. Like he doesn't have to bind himself to what he wants to do.
No,
like he originally wanted to do, because like again, like us in 2015 is miles different than we are now. So it's like,
well, think about how the story of the Pantheon was in 2016 when we wrote the first draft versus now. So
which is miles.
It's literally night and day. So and it's the same thing with that, because and Snyder Cut, when it was finally released, he could have made those choices, but they shot stuff implying that they in 2017 he had changed the story already. So it was obviously just an idea, but all that is to say that he had this idea and the entire arc mapped out, what's now coming up on almost 10 years ago. And all of those movies would have already been released.
Exactly.
By 2020, the saga was going to already be over.
We would have had it all by now, which is ridiculous.
Exactly.
Guess what? Right now they could be like, oh, we can reboot and do the DCU we want to do, even with James Gunn if we want, because nothing on Marvel would have changed, because James Gunn still would have been fired and then come to do something at DC potentially. Maybe it probably would have been like something small, like one-offy, like a Joker or a Batman, even, where Zach could have still been doing his whole thing the whole time. But also, who knows, because we would have gotten the Batman movie directed by Ben. And again, it's just a completely different timeline that we have no idea what would happen after Justice League Part 3.
No, not at all.
It's a curious way to think, though, because who knows where we'd be.
But I just like the idea that no matter what people say about this completely baseless critique, that there was no plan and that Zach had no idea, like people with literally like room temperature IQ, like understandings of not only the IRL timeline, but just how these film, like how the process works. Because if you just look into it, the filmmakers talk about it. So it's not like it's not made up.
Yeah, they're human
I'm telling you the real timeline. And I saw the fucking storyboards that Jim Lee was drawing and Zach was writing. Excuse me. I saw those with my own eyes, like in the exhibit. So it's like, I know the full story. I read it.
You've seen it.
Like I've seen it in my mind. I know what was going to happen.
Right. And it's just
Jay Oliva's talked about it. Zach's talked about it. Fucking Clay Enos, the set photographer on all of Zach's movies, he knows what's going on because he's friends with Zach. He's talked about it. All of the actors that were involved in Justice League, like everyone
backed up Zach. Everyone.
Yes, and but all that is to say, he had a plan, and his goal was going to be, as we started this whole conversation with, his goal was going to be the self-contained saga, like what we talked about, and we knew before we heard Zach even say this himself, but this is how I expressed it to you, and you agreed, 100%. is that he treated it like kind of how I treat all of the movies and shows, is that these are like different comic book runs on a character or a team. Like it's like the Zach like books. It'd be like the writer and artist team starting an arc and seeing it to completion. And that's just basic understanding of comics.
Okay. Well,
like that's what he was trying to do. And it was going to be the cinematic version of that. on the scale of, you know, mythological scale of Lord of the Rings, or
Right. Well,
even greater in some circumstances.
right. But when I see the future of the DCU and what we've been seeing with the MCU, it feels like long runs, like it's just issues, right? And it eventually leads to like a big event, like in comics, right? Whereas Zach, I see it as like
A graphic
novels,
novel.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what people don't understand. It was going to be this one epic story. Like you read like the Dark Knight Returns, that's what it would have been like, where it's just this one thing, but they can expand into sequels. So it's just, or
and then you can have like tie-ins.
Right.
That's what the individual films basically were just like tie-ins.
Right.
You know, it was filling in like story gaps, you know?
Right. Well, Bradley, do you have anything to finish or like to wrap up on with this specific topic? Because we can just go on to talking about the DCU and what you think James Gunn's going to end up doing with it.
Yeah, well, I think a good way to be in a segue is talking about the again, like what he was basically saying in these individual tweets, where he's stating that this Superman movie is going to be a younger Clark Kent, so like a Superboy perhaps era movie, and that's a good concept. But again, I'll say this at the beginning, so I don't have to keep saying it. But it's all in the context of like they're just leaving the arc of these characters unfinished, and then like starting over after not finishing what was already going.
Right.
But again, because if you're starting over, doing essentially a Superboy film, I think is cool. I think that's a cool idea.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
You know, my dad has a lot of those comics from the Silver Age, and I just think it's a cool like image of like, you know, he has like a proto Superman suit in the beginning, and you could like make it where it's like the Golden Age suit to start, and then he gets like the true like classic suit. Anyway, so he's gonna do that, and that thus requires Henry to not be anything. We have no mention of Pattinson, to my knowledge. He didn't. Did he acknowledge those at all?
None. Nothing on Matt Reeves' Batman.
My point was that he didn't. Him meaning Gunn didn't touch on the Reeves films and what was going to become of that, because, you know, I would say that despite my critiques of the film, and I do think it was ultimately like somewhat mid in terms of like it ultimately like left just an okay taste in my mouth. Like I love aspects of it, but overall it just is kind of like, yeah. But in any case, I like everything and everyone involved except the screenplay. So I hope that, you know, under this new almost dictatorial power that they seem to have, I hope that those movies that movie is allowed to continue, and Reeves is able to complete what I think is at least a trilogy. But I've heard a lot of people say that it would be a great point to bring in Pattinson as Batman, and you know, you could arguably use that film to be the starting point of the universe,
like the Iron Man, where it doesn't have to be like into the universe, you know, but like it's like its own standalone film.
Yeah, I mean, and same with the timeline in the Snyderverse. It's just the idea that Batman is a superhero first before Superman is.
Right. So that would be dope to see. But again, it's just like we know nothing, and people have been asking Gunn about Matt Reeves' Batman, so I don't even know if he knows what he's doing with that yet. I'd say you can might as well just let him like do 2 more movies, let it be its separate thing. But what I think he really wants to do is get rid of all these different one-off stuff. Like Joker 2 will be one of the last ones we see. I actually, unless they go with the Batman being like the first movie in their phase 1, I don't see Matt Reeves' Batman continuing.
That's bold. I was gonna say that I would imagine that they would, simply because it has let's be honest, it had the normie appeal. The normies approved of the movie.
That is true.
And while I still did approve of the movie, people were hailing it as like the best film of all time when it was just like good.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or okay. I mean,
It has
it's good, I think.
stuff, but overall,
It's good. It's good, I would say.
Yeah. Well, my main question is for when it gets to Gunn doing this whole DCU, with Henry officially being gone, it's like, okay, everyone else from like Snyderverse should be gone then, right? Like Ben, Gal, Jason, as these characters. So my thing is, it's like he did the Suicide Squad and he did Peacemaker, right? Where he has his wife in these movies. Even in Black Adam, she's in that movie.
What?
Yeah. Same with Waller in Black Adam. So it's like, are you gonna be like, oh, my wife's gonna play the same character because his wife? Same with Harley Quinn being played by Margot Robbie, because of course, like she is a good Harley Quinn, but it's like, if you're getting rid of Henry, it all has to be wiped clean. The only exception to me is Robert Pattinson's Batman. That's the only exception I'll have from what was past DC, like under Warner Brothers.
Right. And I think it honestly comes down to like an age thing as well, because he's now like the young guy. Like
right.
he's like the beginner Batman.
Right. Which you can work off that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I say you can do a sequel to that movie where like it ends in a way which can open up this universe.
Yeah. And I will say, what I would like about the potential of using Pattinson, even if you don't continue the Reeves stuff, just taking Pattinson, I don't see why not. Just use him as Batman. Why cast it again?
Right.
When you have such a good choice right there. You have two good choices right now. But go with Pattinson, because I like the more I like the comic book style relationship. Not that the Snyderverse relationship between Batman and Superman isn't perfectly evocative of the comics, because I felt that it was. But I like the idea of, they're both like starting when they're relatively young, and are like going through it. Going through it together, helping them grow, helping each other grow. It's the world's finest.
I think that's what Gunn might be thinking in his head. Like, you start with the Batman, then you do your Superman movie, and you show both these the main characters of DC grow. You can do it with Wonder Woman 2 to eventually show how they all meet and form the Justice League. And he could even want to do that with like an Aquaman or a Green Lantern or Flash, right? Which I think could be a good concept. But then again, Gunn, he wants to do his more wonky, like out there stuff. He really wants Momoa as Lobo.
Which is not objectively a great casting choice.
Yes, it would be, and I agree. But it's like, when do you include him? Like, how far off is that? Like, is this going to be like wonky, where it's like, with the first phase of the MCU, you literally have the Hulk, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, and the Avengers. That was the first phase of Marvel, and those are the big heavy hitters of that universe. At least not having Spider-Man at the time, right? So the question is, do they do that? Does Gunn do that with having the Batman be the start of it? You have Superman movie that he's doing, and then you do Wonder Woman. You do the same thing. You can maybe make the case for Flash or Aquaman being that other one, but then it leads into like an Avengers type movie where you can get introduced to Green Lantern and Flash or Aquaman, whatever you decide to do. And then phase 2 is where you make their solo movies until you get to another Justice League film, which I think that's the format he's going to try to do.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that. I think that is like a logical prediction of what he was going to do. I was thinking while you were saying that, I don't know why. There's two things. I don't know why, one, we don't explore using technology akin to something like Avatar or something like Ready Player One, where we are creating, or let's say something like what's it called? Love, Death, and Robots.
Right.
Where they use in some of the episodes really like hyper realism type of like 3D computer graphics. Same with, a lot of modern video games look incredible, but I think the movies obviously go beyond those.
Of course.
But I don't know why we're not exploring films like that, which is kind of what George Miller was going to do.
That's what I was going to bring up. It would have been in that.
But this would be like now with technology from that Cameron has developed, plus what Spielberg was doing with Ready Player One, with like ILM and all
ILM,
that. Like one, we could explore a lot of cinematic releases that are super expensive, super really beautiful quality, but we're not worrying about the actors and stuff like that. It's like, you know, things can go way more bonkers, and people, I think, would be less like detached, or less like rather attached to it, like with this weird like celebrity stuff. Like I think people would start to identify more with just the characters, and we can make way more comic book accurate stuff, blah blah blah. That's one idea.
No matter what,
I don't know why we have to do. Wait, well, this is the last thought. Is like instead of the origin stuff, why don't we do? Because people understand the Justice League. Why don't we just start something where, you know, the Justice League is largely already together? Like, do we really need all the origin stories again? I know perhaps not all of them have the origins cinematically. So, but at least from the comic book perspective, it's like, we know the origin. You can just tell a story. You can just make a Justice League movie.
Right. And that's why
I respect what Zach was building, but you could also just go right into it, I think, is all I'm saying. And Gunn could do something like that rather than doing this, you know, we got to have a fucking origin movie for every character. It's just like.
And that's what I think it's going to be, where it's not necessary.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Because like for me, I know I could see any movie with Spider-Man just be thrown out there, you know, like I don't have to see him get bit. And that's what we saw with Marvel deciding to do, which was a great decision. I still would like to see how it happened, but it's whatever. It's not necessary. Right. But I don't know. We'll see. The main thing is just, is Gunn the guy who can do this? That's my biggest worry. Because I know, like,
no.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, like, I don't think he's a competent writer and director. But like, is he truly the biggest fan of this material to actually not make it a laughing stock, you know, where it just becomes a poo-poo joke left and right? Like if I hear Batman make a joke, like in Peacemaker, where you hear like the Flash be like, well, you did, right? Like when he's like, the joke is, you fuck fish, dude, or whatever. And it's just like, really, you're gonna do this with Aquaman?
Well, I think here's the thing. It shows that that's not that he's not funny or has the potential to be funny, because that joke would be funny if they were like back at the Watchtower, just like hanging out.
Sure.
But they were like on a battlefield where there were like people just got murdered and
they
shit.
Did nothing. They did
and
nothing.
They're like, you know, and isn't Superman there or no?
He is there, but it's a solo.
Like, bro, they would not be like, I don't know. It's the part that he doesn't understand tone.
Right.
It's just like, what the hell, man? I know
you have to
it's
understand.
supposed to be a comedy, but it doesn't make sense.
But then I've seen him be able to understand tone in certain ways. Like when I watched Guardians 2 and I watched the whole Yondu dying scene to the end, I'm like, this is actually pretty heartfelt stuff. And but throughout the movie, there's also too much humor. I'm like, James, you have to be able to sprinkle it in, because you're good at it at times when it really lands. But I don't need Batman and Superman cracking jokes at each other the whole time either, which is not the case.
I think a way you could, and I hate to concede things, okay? But I will almost concede in a way that, like, I understand that people can have like a tonal preference, but I just think it shows a deeper respect and a more sophisticated just sense of drama and aesthetics and whatever you want to call it, taste of just that. Like, look, I prefer when these stories and these characters and everything takes itself seriously. Like, I want actual drama. Like I think it's just kind of like, again, it's like an intelligence thing. And it's also just kind of like I think it's also just not systematic. It's characteristic of our times where nothing can be internally serious, or like, you know what I mean? Like anything that the powers that be think is mass marketable is not serious.
Well, it's the instant gratification thing in my eyes. Like people just like to get that humor quickly, or just like have everything.
Or they'll zone out.
Right. And that stuff doesn't like continue into the future. Like when you watch a movie for the first time in theaters, yeah, it can hit really well. But then you watch like I'm trying to think of like maybe Infinity War, where like, or like I don't want to say Infinity War because I really love that movie, but there's certain
I like it too.
well, there's certain MCU movies in general where it's like you see it in theaters like, oh, that's hilarious, but then like you're watching it at home, I feel like it's like, oh, this is where it's like it feels like a wait. It's like a sitcom. It's like you're like the wait for the laugh track to hit.
Yes.
You know? And but again, what I do love though is it's like at least Infinity War, which I think's arguably the best movie in the MCU. What they did understand was tone, because you can have that comedy like thrown out, but then there's huge stakes and it ends in like with the biggest like, oh shit. And like most people have seen in a movie theater where the villain wins, and it's something that everyone loves. It's like a new generation Star Wars. So it's like that was the like this new generation's empire for most cases, right? So it's nice that the MCU is able to still get that tone, but then you watch a movie like Thor: Love and Thunder, which comes out half a year after No Way Home, which are miles different in tone.
That one, dude, that one has a legitimate balance of getting me like in tears and then having me laugh and be like, bro, yes, like these are my boys. Like this is Spider-Man.
This is badass. Like,
yeah, and then it's badass, and then it's like you're kind of scared by like how intense like fucking Goblin is, and
right.
I think the only thing that lacks in that movie is the cinematography. It just looks,
but there are insane shots though.
It's well choreographed, but it's not, it's not shot well. No, anyway, yeah. But I love that movie. I do. I have to admit, it's because I'm a Spider-Man fan.
Yes.
That captured Spider-Man to me. And that's a bigger question compared to what is going to happen with DC, is that I just don't think that Gunn understands that not every property that you do, you can just put in this fucking garbage tier, like humor and like
it works for certain.
I don't know. I just don't think, and I think again, just if we're talking a scale of cinematic talent, bro, it's not much. It's very fucking basic. I do think, and then this guy has the ego that he's like, in the Criterion Collection or some shit. And it's like, bro, no, you're in the Target $5 section. Okay. You're not in the Criterion Collection. It's not that good, man.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, bro, like people in our generation are writing better stuff. It's like, it's not impressive. It's not good.
Well, the reason I think he has this huge ego behind him is because like
because it made money.
Well, yes, but he made Guardians of the Galaxy, right? The first one. Well, yeah, the second one too. But like, he took this comic book group that honestly, like, no one really knew, right? Like, unless you're a diehard comic book fan,
knew of them, but
yeah, but no one really, like, you ask a person on the street, like, who are the Guardians of the Galaxy were, and like, when they came out, like, let's say 2013, a lot of people are probably like, who's that, right? But he makes that movie and it's a huge hit, makes a ton of money, and he's like, oh, I'm that guy.
And it's not bad. It's a good movie. I enjoy it. But it's like we said earlier, bro, Christ allegory, dance battle,
yes,
climax.
It's a good movie. It has a lot of like good, meaningful stuff in it, but it's not this god tier cinema. And then Guardians 3, I think, looks really good. I think Guardians has potential to have a really good trilogy within the MCU.
Yeah, I think it would be a solid movie.
Like, the trailer looked good to me. It looks like it's gonna have some heartbreaking stuff in there, which I like. But it's just ultimately, we've in the DC like universe, all we've seen him do is the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. I will truly have to judge what he does when I see him direct and write a new movie in this universe, like fully. And it involves like one of the big characters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, or Aquaman. Or like, if I see that and I like what I see, then I'll be like, okay, maybe this has a chance to be good. It obviously will never be on the same level as Zack's stuff, but the MCU is not even close to that stuff, and I find most of it enjoyable. So so we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think that also just shows that we both have a nuanced take on this. You like the MCU more than me, but I still readily admit that I like a lot of the movies, or rather, at least some of them.
And when it's deserving, I'll shit on it quite a bit.
Of course. But it's like, I don't have we're not what some people, I don't know, we're not the like a straw man of like the Snyder, like some kind of like, Snyder like jerk off or something.
Right.
I mean, dude, the person that made me want to make films is Nolan with The Dark Knight. So I loved those movies first. So if anything, again, like I'm talking about this on like how I would assess any other, cinematic piece. And it's like, bro, what him and Nolan are doing is literally like they're exploring, legitimate, complex, poetic ideas through the lens of superheroes. And it's like, sorry, that's not what Marvel is doing. It's just not.
No, but it's meant to be something else. Like, to me,
and that's always what we knew we understood that before we were like forced to articulate it.
Like maybe before Disney bought them, like we see phase 1, it could maybe have had potential to become this bigger than life thing. I mean, it did become bigger than life.
I think phase one is is very good.
And then 2 is after Disney buys them, but like has like, of course, you have Winter Soldier in there, which I think is top tier. So it's,
I mean, I was gonna say I think that's probably better than Infinity War.
Winter Soldier, I agree, but Infinity War is in the top 5. Same with No Way Home, and that's all newer stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So Ken, you're gonna have diamonds in the rough always, but
again, well, right, and you're gonna have diamonds in the rough, but the point is what I said before, in prep for the episode, they don't hate the fans, and they don't they want to give. I genuinely think that Feige does like generally know what the fan base is saying.
He has to be on Reddit and Twitter constantly, in my opinion.
On some level, because the No Way Home movie was, I believe it was essentially like they just saw how much people wanted it online, and were like, we should probably just make that.
Right. And like,
I don't know how you don't, because people were saying that long before anyone had any idea what the movie was.
Right. And like, to me, Feige,
DC hates the fans. Warner Brothers hates the fans.
Right. And it doesn't seem like Gunn was like the protege of Feige. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like he was under his wing the whole time. Like, he made 2 Guardians movies, and then he was a producer on Infinity War, right? Like, Feige obviously liked what he showed, of course, but it's like the only reason he was really a producer on Infinity War because it was dealing with his characters that he brought to life in this universe.
Yes.
But now he was overarching MCU because he's like, this is me. I know what I'm doing. And I know this for a fact because what Kevin Feige always says is his number 1 rule: don't piss off the fans. And that's why I think Thor: Love and Thunder was an eye-opener for him.
Yeah.
I think it's a true eye-opener, and that's why I think they're going in a little bit of a different direction where they want quality over quantity. But right now it seems like quantity over quality. So in Gunn, first thing he does, his first big act, is piss off the fans. We see Henry Cavill less than a month ago, or
less than 2 months ago.
Yeah, less than 2 months ago, being Black Adam, right? And then right after that, you see Henry Cavill post like, I'm back as Superman, like this is the future. And then James Gunn gets hired like maybe a few weeks after that. So less than 60 days since this post that Henry's like, I'm back, baby. James Gunn's like, yep, he's out of here. And that's why you can tell Henry is pissed based on his post compared to Gunn's post.
Bro, and I was just looking up to find tweets about that, and I saw that it was officially tweeted that he's going to be the executive producer and the star of the Warhammer show.
Right.
So which is good, because we were wondering about that, meaning that like I think now he's being like, this is my thing.
Yeah, whatever.
And he's not going to let Amazon do what they did to Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time,
And
which has ruined both of them.
And what Netflix did
and
with The Witcher.
And what DC did with DC.
Right. So he's like, screw this.
I think
my shit.
And that's what he loves the most is Warhammer. So I think it is true that he's like, I think Gunn was trying to save face, and he really is.
He has to be saving face.
He really is just like Henry is like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, like screw off. I hope I never work with WB again. That's why Snyder left. So it's crazy. Like that leadership is crazy compared to what like you see ever since BVS, everything has gone down drastically. But you get some good things, again, like MCU, where you get like a Joker or the Batman, right? So they've done some good, but it's just you overall have destroyed a man's vision, multiple people's visions, and just made it something to just say, screw this. We hated you so much. We're destroying this brand even that is one of the biggest properties on the planet. So you can eventually get the James Gunn running the ship.
And you also scattered an amazing cast you could have been shooting with for a decade.
And you alienate a huge portion of your fan base.
A massive portion.
So like I think a lot of people are going to be curious. Like I know I'm curious to see
if
this Superman movie that he's writing comes out relatively soon and we see it, because like what would come out first, right? Like just these movies that are coming out next year, which is still Snyderverse, and I think Joker and Blue Beetle, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So is the Batman 2 happening before we get this Superman movie, or is the Superman going to happen beforehand? That's the question. I don't know. Like I'm curious. I won't say I'm optimistically curious, but I'm curious. Like we'll see what happens.
Yeah, what I think is a big thing is I would like it to just be like I would appreciate if they took time to make this. Can we just stop? What if we just stopped with the movies for a minute? And what if you just took a minute to develop what you're going to do? Like we don't need trying to restart like the Justice League and all of this stuff like another year later. And because let me tell you why. I think it's because it shows that the incentive is still with the market. And then it's making a good movie. Maybe it's more about it's the market thing first. We have to make profit. Yes. So therefore we have to produce the movies. Okay. Which is not how you approach a good film. Sorry, my cat's making sound.
It's all good.
Okay, hold on. This this thing won't shut up.
Yeah, just hold on. They want to wrap it up here soon too. So just edit this out. Also, Bradley, I think we should probably call it here soonish too. So just do your basically final thoughts. I'll give some final thoughts, then we can call it a day.
All right.
Just know what you're doing in the meantime. So
yeah, okay. So I got the 10-minute thing. So again, what I'll say is what I fear is the problem, and what I know is the problem is that they're approaching it the wrong way. Zach, I don't know, Nolan saw that, they after they had done a Batman saga, they wanted to do a Superman saga. And then Zach, I think, probably was like, okay, now that we did the first movie, like we said, right after Man of Steel, 2013, 2014, he does the pitch of his whole idea for this Superman story that will include the Justice League and then conclude in that way.
I'm sorry, I'm getting phone calls from people. My apologies.
But basically, so the approach was rather the idea is that it's coming from an inspired place, right? And I think that this is not. I think this is coming from, like, again, these nameless suits want their thing to compete with the MCU,
That's
and
all.
they're like, all right, let's just take the guy from the MCU and just have it be like this, shadow version of the MCU.
Yeah.
And again, I would want characters such as this to again, like, I'd rather the impetus for the movie is that someone has a genuine, like, drama, a genuine drama, and like an arc and an idea, something that is the genesis point of what would be a legitimate, like, artistic piece, to start at that point. And then whenever that thing is ready, then you release these movies. What I'm saying is I don't want it to be rushed into just for, like, we just need to get something out there that competes. It's like, no,
Yes.
please have genuine inspiration be what's behind it.
Right.
That's my point.
I agree. And then that's the thing with Marvel. They're just pumping stuff out too fast where you see that dip in quality.
Yes.
You saw this with the Snyderverse, where it was reactionary to BVS. It's like, dog, you cut out 30 minutes of my movie, so it makes a little less sense. So a lot of people won't get it. And then they're reactionary to the box office, where they're like, we have to Marvelize these characters in a heartbeat because that's what's successful. You see Infinity War, that shit was dope, or whatever, right?
Or that's what Suicide Squad is. It's like, we got to turn this into Deadpool.
Galaxy or Deadpool. Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's just, I'm curious about the future of DC and Warner Brothers. I'm curious about what happens with Matt Reeves' Batman. And thank you to Zach and Ben and Henry. You've all been done so dirty, and everyone else involved. Like, you all deserved way better. Wish none of you nothing but the success. It's just, it's a tragic thing, but
it is.
Maybe hopefully James Gunn can do something that will at least have a coherent universe, which we started off with, but then Warner Brothers got too greedy and decided to bomb the whole thing. So at the very least, all I ask for from James Gunn is some consistency and something good to be genuinely like, oh, I'm surprised by this. This is like not bad, and I love these characters. So
right.
That's all I hope for the future. But yeah, I think they'll do it, right, Brad? I think we said a lot about this topic, and of course, we're probably gonna do a live stream on this eventually. Especially,
I'd like to. Yeah.
Because I'm hoping, because I think at the beginning of the year, James Gunn's like, I'm gonna reveal more stuff about what I'm planning. So maybe around that time is when we can probably talk more about, okay, we'll have a better idea about what his plan is if he reveals what it is. So
yeah, I guess as a closing thought, I'm just like, someone that's into very, like, deep and artistic cinema, and is making my own stuff, or my own artistic cinema, in my attempt. I just am sad that someone that was reaching towards depths like Zach, like Nolan, like Terrio, like Ben, that it's all being replaced by people that care only about profit, with some literal midwit who, has tweeted sexually questionable content involving children.
We can talk about that on a potential different thing, but yes,
of course. But it's like it's just comparing, like, what was versus
what we had,
now. It's just
now. Yeah.
It's just like,
it's sad. It's truly
it is sad. It's really sad. And as someone that has loved these characters for so long, since before middle school, it's just again, it's just tragic. It's just tragic. It's the biggest, arguably the biggest cinematic blunder ever.
Right.
In terms of, again, what was possible, the profit. That's what they seek. Well, they're losing billions, and the quality. They also could have had something that would stand up to, something like Jackson's Lord of the Rings, Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, and Zach's trilogy still does, but it's just
but
not.
it
The
doesn't have
story is literally not over.
it doesn't have the closure, which sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So again, they missed out on making something that level.
right, and it's a tragedy. But yeah, I mean, on that
It's a
note,
case, a
we
case
don't.
study. It will be. I think it should be written
Yes,
about
I
and like
agree.
studied as a, as something that happened within cinema.
Right, cinema history, right there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
on that note, guys, I think they'll do it on our end, so we don't get too sappy over here because
Yeah.
we've been fans for a long time. So it's the nail in the coffin. It's officially we've been to the wake and the funeral has happened, so it's over. It's done. So, all right, I think I'll do it, Bradley. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining me. I hope to do this again very soon.
Of
Uh,
course.
and of course, we have so much to talk about on any subject in the nerd.
Oh yeah.
So we'll do this again very soon. Hopefully, a live stream so we can just keep going on and on and on. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch y'all really soon. Bye bye.